Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Today I Learned with Billy. Today we're going to be learning the difference between a group and a VCA using Nuendo 10 and my poor iPhone shooting abilities. Just to start very quickly, a group and a VCA are both grouping or are both control of several audio channels at once. A group controls several audio channels at once. A VCA controls several audio channels at once. The difference between the group and a VCA is a group you can insert an effect. For example, in this particular instance that I'm going to show you, we're using what's called a master drum group. We're taking elements of the drum set and separating the different microphones into a group. So for example, the kick drum has 2 microphones on it, the snare drum has 2 microphones on it. This session has 2 different rack toms with various microphones on them. This group that I'm calling metal is a slang term I stole from Dave Rapp, but that's basically just the overhead microphones and the hi-hat microphone. Room mic is obviously there are the room mics, but there are 2 different stereo pairs of room mics. There's a group of percussion mics, and then what I'm calling master drum. So the input channels, the 2 kick drum mics are routed to the kick group, the 2 snare drum mics are routed to the snare group, etc., etc. The thing that we're doing a bit differently here is we're taking those groups, the kick group, the snare group, the toms group, and we're routing that to a master drum group. We're also choosing to route our effects, which in this particular instance, we're just using a reverb on the drums. We're sending our reverb back into our drum group so that our drum group is controlling both the reverb and all of the individual instruments. Over the drum group, we've got a Fairchild 670 UAD compressor plugin. I'm choosing this plugin just because it has very large VU meters and it will illustrate my points. To the end of the screen here, I have 2 VCAs set up. I have one that's called Master Drum, and I have another one that's called Drums. Master Drum is controlling the drum reverb fader and the master drum fader. So it's going to take a bit of you're going to have to follow with me. Know that since we're grouping all of our groups into a master group, be it the kick drum, the snare drum, the toms, the metal, etc., into a master drum group, our VCA is controlling our master drum group, and it's also controlling our drum reverb. So the main difference between a group and a VCA is the group you can affect. You can put an EQ over the group. You can run an insert into the group. A VCA is essentially just a remote control. In its simplest terms, the VCA controls a grouping of faders at their relative positions. So, for example, I have a drum VCA that are controlling all of my individual drum channels within the group. So if I move this fader, this controls all of my drum faders at their relative position. If I move this group fader, it just controls the amount of volume coming out of that group. For my second example of using the VCA as a remote control, I'm using the VCA to control the master drum group and the drum reverb. So as I move this fader, it's moving the purple fader, which is the drum reverb, and also the master drum group. So to hear what that sounds like, it sounds like this. I'm going to move the master drum fader, and we're going to pull this down. And then that kills all of the drum sends at once. So it kills the dry send, which is our group, and it also controls the drum reverb because I assigned it like that. Now the more practical application of a VCA is to show how it affects gain. So I'm going to pull my drum VCA down. This is controlling all of the drum channels together. I'm going to bring that back up to unity. Now, because I have an insert over my drum group, I'm going to pull this is controlling how hard we're hitting this compressor, which is the main use for a VCA, or at least how I like to use VCAs. It's all about gain staging different inserts. So as I bring this down, hang on, let's restart this. As I bring the VCA down, you can see if we're at unity here, we're getting about 2 dBs of gain reduction, 1 to 2 dBs of gain reduction on the compressor. So as I bring this VCA down, bringing the faders down in their relative position, it's going to affect how hard the gain is hitting the compressor. So at its, that effect that you're hearing is just the reverb return from the percussion track. So as I bring the VCA up, we're bringing the faders up in a predetermined relative position, and we're changing how we affect the compressor. So if I go above unity, up into the plus 12 region, you can see that we're adding more gain. We're driving the compressor into compression harder. In an example to show how that's applicable, we can play the drum track again, and if I take my master drum fader down, you can see that that's down. There's nothing going into the group, and yet we're still seeing up 1 to 2 dBs of compression on the compressor. Why? Because the compressor is an insert. So the signal is going into the compressor and out of the compressor before it hits the fader. So you can't really change how hard you drive the compressor by the group. So even with the fader all the way up to plus 12, we're still only getting 1 dB of compression. So if I wanted to change how I affected my compressor, I can take my drums VCA up, and we can put that all the way up to plus 12, and you can see that even with it all the way up, we're driving the compressor harder. So if you remember the golden rule between a group and a VCA, is that a group has gain, a VCA is just a remote. The VCA controls all of the faders in their relative position. The other way to think about it is there's no audio going through a VCA. The VCA is only a remote control. So you can put whatever you want on a VCA. You can put effects returns on there. You can put aux sends on there. In a live situation, you can control someone's monitors from a VCA. For example, if you're mixing a show and a performer wants to maybe bow with a microphone in their hand, you can set up an aux return master fader on a VCA, and that can control that aux send. So hopefully this explains it. This is just a very general overview, a crash course in groups and VCAs. If anybody has any specific questions, please just comment in the comment section. I'd love to make more audio related videos. Or if you think that I'm really wrong in the way I've explained this, open up to the comment section. But yeah, this is episode 3 of Today I Learned with Billy.